Start recording. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you guys for being on. I'm super excited. Okay, let's get this thing kicked off. So I'm here with Nina. Is it tomorrow or tomorrow, Nina?
Tomorrow. It's tomorrow. Like today, tomorrow.
Oh, wow, tomorrow. Okay, Nina tomorrow. So I'm here with Nina tomorrow. We actually met over a Facebook message, I think.
Yep.
Something, I don't even remember how it happened. I was adding random people that looked really cool that were making an impact in the world, and I stumbled upon Nina. Next thing you know, we're on the phone and we connected. I still remember our first phone call. That was so awesome. We'd like right away hit it off like an hour-long conversation. I was like, man, I'm definitely going to be doing some work with this chick. She's badass. So that was super cool. But Nina is now just let me know if I say this right, but she's a writer and a content strategist for startups.
Yeah.
She works with like over 30 or 40 startup companies, and she's actually in the process of releasing her own podcast and training and brand, and basically just dumping her heart and her mind and what she's learned over the years into this brand. So this is kind of just like a little taste of the content that Nina can bring to the table and kind of what she's all about. This is my roommate, Tyler. All right, cool.
Is that a live thing?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people?
A lot of people, yeah. All right, so I'm super excited. So, Nina, why don't you take it away and let everyone know exactly what we're going to be talking about, and maybe share a little bit of your story, and we'll get this thing kicked off.
Perfect. Hey, everybody. Thank you, Brandon, for that awesome intro. My name is Nina, and I want to share with you the reasoning why I became obsessed, and yes, I use the word obsessed, with figuring out how to cultivate a deeper presence when you're connecting with people, when you're meeting people for the first time. So I am originally from the small town of Cleveland, Ohio, and I had a pretty normal life up until college. I was figuring out what I was going to do next. I had the dream of moving to California, which, crazy enough, I live in right now. That came to fruition. And I had an event that kind of shook me up and made me feel super disconnected from the world. I was at a college party, as one is when you're in college, and I unfortunately was with the wrong group of people at that time, and I ended up being roofied and taken advantage of, and woke up the next morning realizing what had happened. And it was kind of like I almost felt as if I was outside of my body. And I felt super disconnected from people in general. I was all sorts of emotions. I was hurt. I was angry. I was frustrated. I didn't even know how to interact with people after that. And slowly but surely, I discovered the self-development world, and Tony Robbins was a big influence in helping me reconnect with not only other people, but reconnect with myself and figuring out what the next move is and how I could take the experience that I had and help people. Because I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and you go through things to make you stronger. And I also believe that you go through things to help other people through those same scenarios that they have to go through and learn their own lessons. So I have spent a lot of years kind of rebuilding confidence, and I know that I sound loud and here and present now, but it took a lot of work to get here. And so I'll be honest, for many years, I felt as though I lacked presence, and I lacked the skills required to connect deeply with people. And so I became a little obsessed with it, and I started looking into the art of conversation and asking the right questions and connecting with people, and how to kind of dig deeper and be there and have this presence that kind of draws people in and makes them feel special and makes them feel heard and makes them feel connected. And I realized that a lot of people kind of felt the same as me. I just got a stat actually from Simon Sinek, who is the Start With Why guy. He said that 1 in 5 Americans feels chronic loneliness. And this could be even if they're surrounded by people. And I thought that it was one, scary, and two, it shows we have a need to figure out why we're so disconnected and bring back that kind of human element to our interactions. So the webinar today, as we're calling it breaking the ice, I think some of the hardest parts of meeting somebody for the first time is kind of not really knowing where to begin, the right questions, and how to like dig deeper into that surface level conversation. So that's what we're going to delve into today a little bit. And I wanted to bring up, why it's so important to connect with others. One, I was just at a conference called Thrive, and I have to give a shout out to the Thrive. Cole Hatter, thank you for throwing it. And the Thrive Tribe, it was an amazing event. And every single speaker at this event was basically like, I built my business through people. I built my business through connections. I was able to create this because I had the support of others, and that really stuck with me. And so we need other humans. We can't do this on our own. We need each other. We need to support each other. And we have a core internal need. One of the reasons why I write content is because I'm able to help people find their voice and be heard. And one of our deepest needs is that need to be heard, to be seen, to be valued, and to feel that deep connection with others. And so this is why I wanted to host an event around this topic. And I kind of want to delve into the three parts of that. There's probably more than three, but for the purposes of this, when you're starting a conversation with somebody or somebody that, like let's say you have a relationship in your life that you want to kind of dig deeper into, like a coworker or a business partner or significant other, these three things can help you connect more deeply. And why I'm sharing these is because they're actionable right now. They're easy to implement, and I love doing things right now. So I hope that you get some value from this. So what are the three parts? Step one, learn how to ask better questions. We as humans love to talk, and it's funny because I'm not necessarily used to talking this much. When you meet me, some people actually think I'm sort of antisocial because I just will sit there and listen as long as I can. And I like to gain knowledge and hear the stories of others. But asking better questions can help you connect with people when you're meeting them for the first time. I want to share some of these questions with you so you have a little toolbox to use the next time. I actually want you to use these tomorrow. Like, let's not wait. Like, the next conversation you have, try some of these out. I promise you will see shifts in your conversation. So the first one, open-ended questions. Use them. What do I mean by an open-ended question? This is a question that invites somebody and allows somebody to talk more at length. The opposite of this is a closed-ended question. And a closed-ended question is basically like asking somebody a question that only has a yes or no answer, or a very short type of answer. So I'll give you a specific example. One of the things we tend to ask, like let's say you're going into the office, common question, did you have a good weekend? That's an example of a closed-ended question because they're going to say either yes or no. And then if they say no, when most of us don't want to delve into what that no means, so it can get a little awkward, and this is kind of why closed-ended questions, it's hard to go past the surface level from there. So if you ask that, rephrase it, and you say, what did you do this weekend? That is an open-ended question, and that also shows them that you're interested in what they had to do this weekend, and they'll talk at length, and that invites you to ask more questions and dig a little deeper. The second thing that I am coining is what I like to call the dig. I like to call it the dig because, again, we ask kind of like these, we ask a question and then we kind of stop from there, like when we get an answer back, or we're already thinking about how we're going to respond, and then we're giving our take on the whole situation. But the dig is kind of asking questions within a question. So like, let's say you ask them what they did this weekend and they said, oh, I went boating. I would then go, oh, what do you like about boating? What got you into boating? Is that something that you're passionate about? And then again, that digs a little deeper and it opens them up a little more to one, show them that you care, that you're listening, and to get a little more information about them that you could pull just past that surface level conversation. And then the third thing you can do, I call it the inspiration. So sometimes people are a little more closed off, and to get them to share more, you have to start first. So when you're asking somebody a question, maybe share what, like, again, let's go back to this, what did you do this weekend question. Share what you did this weekend, and maybe share a little bit more, like let's say that you went to a show, say what you liked about the show, talk about your passions, and then that invites them to share more about what they did, or if they have a connection to what you said, they'll dig a little bit deeper into that. And then the last one, I really love if you're a leader and you're managing employees or just starting a company and even if you just have like one person under you, this is really good, because as a leader, I truly believe now we have to be inspiring our employees and not necessarily managing them. So I call it the asking empowering questions versus disempowering questions. The empowering question does a little more to convey that you have respect for your employee versus a disempowering question, which is often something more negative. And usually a disempowering question, basically you're giving your opinion in the question, so it's really not even a question. So examples of an empowering question, let's say the employee that you have needs a little clarity on something. You would say, can you explain a little more about this situation? So then they can delve a little more into it. And I've actually used this. I manage a lot of employees with the company that I work at right now. A lot of them are contractors. And I'll ask them these questions like, can you explain? Can you describe? And it's kind of interesting how they'll come to their own solution, and you're more so a facilitator, and you're inspiring them to take action. And it also makes them feel really great, and then they feel really great about you. Another one, for example, this is actually something that I'm very familiar with. Like if you're on a sales team and your boss asks you, well, did you make your sales goal? That's a pretty disempowering question, and it has a little bit of a negative connotation if you didn't make your sales goal. So you can switch that around and say, how have sales been going? What can I assist in? How do you think that we can make this better? Just kind of reframing the question and making it a little more positive and a little less negative can do a lot for the self-esteem of an employee or a coworker, and just kind of change the whole interaction. And I'm going to share a couple books on this webinar with you. There is a book called A More Beautiful Question, and it's by a guy named Warren Berger. And if you really want to deep dive into how to ask really great questions to connect past the surface level, I highly, highly recommend this book. It's a really easy read, and it's an even better audiobook because he narrates and he's very engaging. So it's just an overall easy read and very actionable takeaways. So we have the questioning part now, and we're in this conversation, but we're not just questioning. We have to do some work too. We have to actively listen to people. And I sort of find this to be one of the more difficult traits to find in millennials today, especially. We consistently listen to respond. And it's very rare that we are sitting there and listening simply to listen without judgment and really hear somebody and what they're saying. So I kind of want to give some tips on being a better active listener, because this is extremely important. And also I think I'm just kind of inherently a listener. I like to learn, but I've worked on this skill for a couple of years, and I've seen incredible results. And I've created very deep relationships just through listening to somebody, because I think that that's one of the things that we feel we're missing. We feel unheard, and we feel disconnected because people aren't actually listening to us most of the time, and this can help kind of reshape and reform that in your relationship. So number one, this is a must. You have to want to listen. You have to be excited to engage with people. And the best advice I think I can give is imagine that like whoever you're in conversation with is your favorite celebrity, favorite entrepreneur, favorite speaker, whatever is your jam, and ask yourself like, what kind of enthusiasm would I show up with? How much care would I show up with in this conversation? How many great questions would I ask because I'm super intrigued by this person? And if you show up to every conversation and every interaction like that, I swear to you, things will change, and it'll be incredible, the types of people you meet and the types of connections you make. And I did mention, do not listen to respond. Listen to actually listen to people. And let people know that you're listening to them. Another kind of trick to the active listening part is sometimes, have you ever been in a conversation and you're kind of wondering if the person is listening to you, you're not sure, and you don't know how to gauge it? So the way to help the person that you're listening to know that you're actively listening, nod. Like Brandon's been doing it half of the webinar, and it's been great. He's actively engaged. Or you respond by kind of paraphrasing what they said. So, interpreting what they said and asking, did I hear that correctly? And doing that without judgment. Like, again, this is kind of where you can bring in that questioning again and asking them if you are interpreting it in the way that they're talking.
When you said how powerful paraphrasing is, I remember learning, and especially when you're in a position of sales or any position where you want to express your influence or you want to help someone's decision, it's so important that you satisfy the one piece of them that you heard, and there's no better way of doing it. Number one, paraphrasing, but number two, not responding until you know that they think, even if you don't, but they know, that they think you're listening, right? Because if they know you are understanding them, that right there is half the battle. Someone can feel understood in your presence. They feel comfortable around you. They feel like you're actually listening. So the biggest thing, I've even done this, I've asked them if I'm understanding them correctly. Hey, am I understanding you correctly? You said this. Is that right? Yes or no, right? And then from that point, my response is 10 times more powerful. They tend to drop their walls when they feel understood. Their walls come down, because then it's not a battle of me versus you. It's like, oh, wow, I actually feel understood. We're on the same team type of thing. So
yeah, 100%. And to play off of actually just what you said there, if you're getting distracted while you're listening, like if somebody comes over and tries, like when you're at a networking event, you'll have people come in and try to join the conversation, or there's just a lot going on around you. Just tell them, like, stop them from talking and be like, I'm so sorry. I got distracted. I really care about what you're telling me. Can you please repeat that? Again, like that goes a long, long way, and it shows them that you care and that you are listening. Yeah, and then the last thing is be respectful and have empathy when you are listening to people. You don't have to agree with them, and you may not agree with them, but you have to be respectful and hear them out if you want to have an engaging conversation and approach it with an open mind. So, and then the third thing that you have to have in cultivating these deeper conversations is confidence. So this is where Brandon and I are going to kind of delve in together. I have an amazing book for you guys for this one as well. It's called The Confidence Gap, and it's by, I believe he's a scientist called Russ Harris. Russ Harris is his name, and the book will completely change your views on confidence. This is kind of one of the areas that I've been working on for many years, and this book sort of transformed my relationship with the word. And I just want to share a few things that I've learned from it that have really worked for me. There's a myth that confidence is the absence of fear, and that's not true at all. The truth is actually that transforming your relationship with fear is confidence. So the fear is always going to be there, but you're going to transform how you're interacting with that fear. And that involves gaining control of your thoughts. And there's a lot of science right now. I know, Brandon, you're into this too. There's a ton of science on the neural pathways that are created when you have a negative thought versus a positive thought. And this book kind of breaks it down a little bit further and says those neural pathways that are negative never go away. They're always there, and they're always going to be underlying. And the goal is to build so many more positive neural pathways that it's constantly overshadowed and it's just in the background. So you're defaulting more to that confidence versus that ingrained negative thought, if that makes sense. And so I have this stream exercise that really helps, kind of like when you have a negative thought, like let's say for me, actually it was public speaking for a very long time. I had to really push through that fear. And every time right before I'd go on stage, I would just have all of these thoughts consume me, and it would almost make me not even want to go on stage. And one of the exercises that really, really helped me is the stream exercise. And it's basically, it's honoring your fear. You're not trying to push away your fear. It's never going to go away, but you're changing the relationship with it and giving it less power. So you imagine whatever the thought is, say it out loud, write it on a piece of paper, and then get into like a little meditative state and visualize a stream. It can be a fast-flowing stream, a slow-flowing stream, whatever you want it to be. And then you imagine some leaves floating on this stream. And you imagine putting that thought on a leaf and just watching it as neutral and watching it kind of float away. And do this every day with whatever thought is reoccurring that you notice. And it almost kind of, it diffuses the thought and it makes it less powerful day by day until you're just kind of like in the flow, like, oh, well, I see it, it's here, but it doesn't really affect me anymore. I'm going to let that go. It's a really, really powerful tool to use when you're building confidence. And the last thing that I want to say on that is that the actions of confidence will always come first. You have to take action, and the feelings of confidence will always come after. I know that sounds backwards, but you just have to push through, and the more that you do something, the more confident you'll become.
I love that. Yeah, like what you said, confidence is actually an action, because if you think about what confidence is something you do, right? It's how you act. Confidence, if someone is sitting there and not acting in any sort of way, right, and they're just sitting there, you can't tell whether they're confident or not. They have to be doing something in order for you to judge what they're doing to see, hey, are they confident, are they insecure? So confidence is, and I remember learning this when I was really young by my first mentor, Graham, when I was probably 19 or 18. He said, confidence is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And by acting confident, you act into the feeling of confidence. So you actually gain the feeling after the action, which is really crazy. And it's pretty easy to do if you just embrace your imagination and ask yourself, how would the confident version of me act in this situation? And then understand that because I might feel fearful, because I might feel insecure, or because I might feel hesitant, the fact that I'm going to act anyway is actually going to create a feeling of confidence every single time. And I don't necessarily have to create that feeling first. So there's been many times where before getting on stage for myself, or before getting onto a webinar, or before calling someone on the phone, I felt the feeling, but I acted so quick that feeling didn't get a chance to get roots. The feeling didn't get a chance to gain momentum, right? And the action was so quick, it was like, yeah, it was there, but it's gone. And so it's narrowing the gap between that negative thought process and that action that I feel like is super important. And I mean, even like I've studied all types of personal development, and this one kind of stuck with me back in maybe when I was 20 or 21, Real Social Dynamics. It's actually the art of pickup, how to pick up chicks, right? So I showed up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to pick up chicks. Turns out it was not anything about picking up chicks. It was all about becoming confident and embracing yourself, embracing self-love. And one thing they said is, whenever you have a thought or an inclination to act on it now. The longer you wait, the less likely you're going to do it, the more fear is going to creep in, and the more these insecurities are going to take over and direct your action. So that always stuck with me. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to meeting new people, or approaching really anyone or doing a sales call, feeling confident in any conversation, there's a couple things that have helped me and that have been kind of a common theme. Number one is dealing with the baseline beliefs around that issue, around conversating, around connecting. And what it is 9 times out of 10 is fear of rejection, fear of humiliation, fear of not being liked, right? So when you actually trace that back and zoom out and you ask yourself, well, why must I believe that? And you can actually identify the core belief, 9 times out of 10, it won't make any sense. And what I mean by that is if I thought for some reason, if I asked someone a question or expressed a statement or whatever, and I was wrong, or they didn't approve, or they had a conflicting opinion, for me to assume that they won't like me is just a fallacy. It doesn't make any sense. It's like me and Nina can have different opinions on the 49ers game, but she's still my friend. You know what I mean? None of that actually makes sense. So if you actually think about, okay, well, what is actually going to cause this person to reject me, you'll never find a valid reason. Why? Because any negative belief that makes you feel that sort of way can't logically make sense or be in alignment with your highest values. So therefore, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to line up with you, and you kind of just throw it out the window, right? So you need to realize, okay, what about that situation is making me feel uncomfortable? Why doesn't it make sense to me? And then act on it anyway, because the truth is, the only reason that someone would reject you is if you are acting to prevent the rejection, because then you're inauthentic and people can see that. They can see that you're trying. And when we can just be ourselves, and how do we be ourselves is we have to embrace our imperfection. I think that is so important. We have to realize this person, if they have any similar fears, they're actually worried about me rejecting them, and I'm worried about them rejecting me. So we're both really sitting here thinking about ourselves. Right? Now, the first person to actually be authentic in that space will break that pattern, because the other person is going to say, wow, this person's not acting in a certain way. This person's not trying to convince me to like them or be a people pleaser or whatever they have to do to gain my acceptance. They're just being their raw self, and that is so attractive. I think I can be my raw self as well. So that's the great illusion, is by trying to fit into the illusion of what you think of who you think you have to be to satisfy someone else actually pushes them away. So the key is to look at your imperfections and what you're good at and neutralize them both and say, this thing that I suck at and people may not like, I love, and this thing it's me, it's who I am, and these things that I'm good at, I love these too. And if I be my authentic self, I'll attract people that like me for me. And that's where a real relationship can flourish, because if you put on a facade, you'll only attract people that like this other version of you. Next thing you know, you have to keep up with version 1 of you at church, version 2 of you at school, version 3 of you at home, and all these different versions, right? You ask my mom's on this right now, you ask my mom and my friends and anyone, I act the same everywhere I go. And sometimes I get looked at funny, like if I'm in public or whatever, I will always, and this took a while, probably only this last year and a half, right? Whether someone asks me my opinion, whatever it may be, you can always count on me being a straight shooter. And that's why my inner circle, I've created an inner circle that's completely judge-free, right? Because you don't judge people when they're 100% authentic. People tend to judge when you catch someone not being themselves, because it's off-putting. So that's my take on confidence. Embrace your imperfection. Realize that by trying to be the person you think someone wants you to be, you can never develop a deep relationship. Your authentic self will attract more authentic people, and you just can't be scared of rejection. Because 9 times out of 10, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about them, right? They want to be accepted just as much as you do. So the key is just accept yourself first to create an environment where, oh, it's okay for us to be normal or weird or say things that I really want to say, but I don't know if it's appropriate. It's like almost look at social norms as just disintegrate social norms in situations. And the more that you disintegrate anything that's going to mold you to a shape that you don't feel comfortable in, then you have to disintegrate those. Right? It's like if I'm in a coffee shop and I pick up the phone, the way that I say hi to my friend there is going to be the same way that I pick up a phone if I'm just about to get on stage in my mentor call. It's going to be the same way, right? Everything is going to be aligned. So, yeah, there you go. There's my confidence rant. That was exciting. But if you guys have any questions, let's see. And Nina, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I wanted to add on the rejection topic.
Mm-hmm.
I did this thing called rejection therapy when I lived in Las Vegas, and I had this really cool experience working with a bunch of startups with a startup tech fund that Tony Hsieh from Zappos.com started. And there was a speaker named Ja, and he came in and he basically was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to speak, but we're actually going to all go outside and do some rejection therapy. And it's the best. If you can get a group of people to do this, it's even more fun. But you just basically go try the craziest things you can think of that are legal. Throw that in there. Don't get too crazy. But just try things, and you actually aim to be rejected to kind of transform the feeling with it. So I actually went up to just random people and was like, can I have a hug? And a lot of them said no. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was a little sad. And then as I kept going and I got more confident, I got more hugs, and it was awesome. So, and I firmly believe it was because I was transforming that shift and stepping more into my authentic self as I got more comfortable putting myself out there. So it's just a fun little thing to add. If you want to try out some rejection therapy, I highly encourage it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Cool. Well, we've been on for a little bit now, about 33 minutes. If you guys have any questions when it comes to communication, consciously communicating, connecting with people, building rapport, that sort of thing, feel free to put something in the chat box. You don't have to raise your hand. And we would love to answer a couple questions while we're still on here.
Yes.
And if not, we are recording this, so we are going to send it out. I'll be sending it in the Wake Up group and also to my email list. And Nina is also going to include a link in the chat box. Do you want to kind of talk about that real quick, Nina?
Yeah, and I'm going to throw it in there right now. So I am launching a podcast that is going to launch in mid-December. It's called The Art of Now. And essentially, one of my goals with this is to interview the most powerfully present people I've met. I've had the blessings to meet some really incredible speakers and authors and entrepreneurs, and not all of them, but some of them have this way about them where they kind of just make you feel like you're the only person in the room. They make you feel special. They make you feel super confident. You want to be around them. And I was super curious, what is it about them that makes them that way? And so I'm interviewing these people and asking them questions about how to be more present with people, how to be more engaging, how to own a room, how to connect on a deeper level with people. And this podcast is going to encompass all of that. And I'm learning with everybody that I'm sharing with too. So I'm really excited to launch this. So that link that I dropped in is going to be for the email newsletter for that. I will not spam you. It is solely to send out when the podcast launches and how you can get the episodes and keep you up to date with upcoming speakers. So I would love for you all to join. It's going to be fantastic, and I have some pretty cool speakers lined up for the first couple episodes. So I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Well, if you don't have any more questions, I'm going to stop the recording and exit the webinar. But thank you so much for getting on. We're going to have a lot more webinars. And, I mean, give it up for Nina. If you guys enjoyed Nina's presence, throw something in the chat box for Nina. And definitely check out her podcast. It's going to be badass. Nina is badass. And, yeah, thanks for hopping on, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, all.